Hey everyone, today I'm making a vegetable dish inspired by Ratatouille but built completely differently. Same vegetables tossed in a mix of aromatic fresh herbs, fanned out over a rich flavorful sauce, then roasted until the edges get golden and crispy. And then to finish it off, a layer of panko that turns golden and crackly in the oven. What you got is a dish that's crispy on the top, tender underneath, with a crunch that is hard to resist. When is the last time you actually listened to your food while it cooked? I'm Omid, psychotherapist, trained chef, cookbook author, and around here, every dish is a lesson, not just a recipe. You can find recipes just about anywhere. What we're building here is a relationship with the process. We smell, we taste, we improvise, and we learn to trust our senses. That's how you actually learn to cook. By the way, this is a zero waste dish. So every vegetable that I use, I save the trimming. So be sure to stay all the way till the end where I'll show you what I'm going to do with this. All right, let's get started. But before we dive in, take a second, make sure you got everything you need laid out in front of you, and just settle into your body for a moment. Okay, let's start with the herb mixture. Herbs grow so well here in the Pacific Northwest, and I feel really lucky to have such a beautiful variety right in my own backyard. If you have a balcony, patio, or any little bit of outdoor space, I honestly can't recommend growing your own herbs enough. It makes it just so easy to grab some fresh herbs whenever you need them and pick just the right amount for each dish. Today, I'm picking up some rosemary, sage, and thyme to use in this recipe. Hold on to the rosemary stem and gently pull the leaves off. Then repeat the same process with thyme. Thyme is a little bit more delicate since the stems aren't as tough and woody as rosemary. I also didn't do this today, but you can roughly chop the rosemary first to make it just a little easier for your food processor to break it down. Next, we're going to add the fresh herbs to the food processor, followed by the garlic, salt, red pepper flakes, and fennel seeds. Then let your food processor do the rest of the work, breaking everything down into a nice coarse mixture. With the food processor running, slowly drizzle in the olive oil. You really only want to process it just long enough for everything to come together. Then stop and check the consistency. You are essentially looking for a cohesive, coarse mixture that will cling to the sliced vegetables and coat them beautifully. Okay, now that I have made the herb mixture, it's time to work on the sauce. The sauce could be as simple as a tomato sauce, but you know what? I think I can build in a lot more flavor when I reach for more vegetables. In this case, I'm going to be using an onion, a carrot, a red pepper, and a fennel bulb. And the way I always cook vegetables, I always think about how they grow. They grow from the ground up, meaning when I cook these vegetables, I'll start with the onion, then I'll switch to the carrots, give it extra time for it to get sauteed and seal in the flavors. Then I'll switch to, in this case, the fennel bulb, and lastly, the pepper. Then, of course, I am going to add some fire roasted tomatoes with paprika, more herbs, and more garlic. And by the time this whole thing is cooked and pureed, it is a sauce unlike any other sauce that is going to flavor all the other vegetables that are going to be cooked in this dish. Turn the heat to medium and let the pan warm up. Once it's hot, drizzle in a couple of tablespoons of oil. You'll know the pan is ready when the oil spreads easily across the bottom. Start with the onion, give it a stir every now and then, and let it cook until it begins to soften and pick up some color. Once it's started to break down a bit, add the carrots. Let them saute until you can see some browning on the cut edges. That's a good sign they've been cooking long enough to develop some flavor. Next, add the fennel and let it do the same thing before adding the red pepper. By this point, all of the vegetables should have a little color on them and smell aromatic. Now, add the garlic, thyme, rosemary, and paprika. Stir everything together and cook for another couple of minutes so that the herbs and the spices have a chance to become fragrant and flavor the vegetables. Finally, add the tomatoes and give everything a good stir before adding a splash of a good aged balsamic vinegar. Now that everything is assembled, add enough salt to bring everything together. Cover the pan, lower the heat, and cook until all the vegetables are nice and tender. Okay, now it's time to slice the vegetables. You could use a mandolin if you have one, if you like to use one. Otherwise, just grab your sharp knife and just slow down and slowly slice each vegetable. Keep them more or less the same size so that when you fan them out inside the pan, they just look uniform and very nice looking. So let's get started. Okay, now that all the vegetables have been sliced, I've added them to this big bowl, and now I'm going to coat them with that herb mixture that we made earlier. I'm going to save about a tablespoon of this aside. It will come into play later when I toss it with the panko. But for now, I need to add all the veggies. But I'm going to be very careful with the tomatoes because they're quite soft and I don't want them falling apart. As a matter of fact, I won't add the onions to this mixture as I mix them because I want the rings to remain intact. So I'll save them aside, gently add the tomatoes to this big bowl, and add all but about a tablespoon of this herb mixture into this and give it a nice little massage, gentle, so that every piece is nicely coated with that herb mixture. The vegetables have been cooking in their own juices for about 15 minutes and have become beautifully soft and moist. Now, carefully transfer them to the food processor so that we can puree them. And the sauce is so packed with vegetables that essentially looks like a spread. Now, this is the part you don't want to miss. Definitely give it a taste and see if there's any adjustments you need to make. There is lots of herbs, lots of vegetables, some garlic, and that touch of balsamic vinegar that really just brings everything to life. You won't believe this. It's just vegetables and it tastes so good. That fennel adds such a background sweetness. There is no hint of licorice if you're sensitive to the licorice part. It just adds such a nice body and flavor profile that makes this sauce extraordinary. All right, now that the sauce is made, I'm going to take the sauce out of the food processor and then put it back in the same pan that I used to make the sauce. That same pan is going to be where I arrange the vegetables decoratively and then I put it in the oven. So essentially, I used the food processor twice and didn't have to wash it because it was just adding more herbal flavor back into the sauce. And the pan that the sauce was cooked in is oven safe, so it will go straight to the oven, makes cleanup just a little easier. Using your rubber spatula, spread the sauce evenly across the bottom of the pan. Then take your time arranging the vegetables. Alternate between the different colors and textures to create a beautiful pattern. As you arrange them, gently press the vegetables into the sauce and keep them tucked closely together so that they stay upright. The finished dish will become a colorful spread of vegetables nestled beautifully into the sauce. Remember those onions we put aside? Well, now it's time to add them back into the vegetable spread. Just find any little nooks and crannies and then tuck the onions in wherever they fit. My onion was definitely much bigger than the rest of the vegetables, but that's what I had on hand. The good news is that it will soften and almost melt into the dish as it cooks, becoming a beautiful part of the final dish. Now that everything is assembled, transfer the pot to your preheated oven and let it bake until the vegetables are lusciously soft and steaming, about 45 minutes. While the vegetables are cooking in the oven, go ahead and mix the remaining tablespoon of that intoxicatingly aromatic herb mixture with the panko. Now that you've taken the vegetables out of the oven, notice how soft and tender they've become, giving you that classic ratatouille texture. However, to make this dish a little drier and add a crispy finish, sprinkle that herby panko evenly over the surface and then return the pan to the oven, but this time uncovered so that the panko can become golden and crisp. So while there weren't a whole lot of trimmings, but whatever bits and pieces of the veggies that I ended up not using for this dish, I saved up. As a matter of fact, I have a bag that I keep in the freezer. So every night that I cook, I'll just save the trimming, toss it into this bag, toss it back into the freezer until the weekend when I have a little bit more time, and then I will simmer it all and just have a basic garden variety, simple veggie broth. That way you're literally using every last bit of this vegetable. Lastly, the time is up, so let's take a look at how those layers of vegetables and sauce and herbs have come together into one beautiful dish. When you cook vegetables the right way and season them well, you end up with something really hard to resist. And this dish is a proof of that. Now it's time to serve. Make sure you get a little bit of everything on that plate. The tender vegetables, the sauce underneath, and that crispy herby topping. This is the kind of dish where every bite brings together all the layers of the flavors that we've worked so hard to build along the way. To say it melts in your mouth is the understatement of the century. The onions are so sweet and jammy. Naturally, all the vegetables have given their flavor to the sauce and have picked up the flavor of the sauce. It is just one beautiful, harmonious vegetable dish. Thank you for being here. If you make this, I'd love to hear how it turned out for you. So let me know in the comments. And if you want more of this in your life, hit subscribe. I'll see you next time.